kamashka kayjilli kamashka awaru gureski kajilla jilerkin ayga kakka kefadire أغار الليل ويكاية أغار الليل ويكاية عيلنا فكة نم عنا سهرا نرمينكو كوتولا غنانم عنا سهرا نرمينكو كوتولا غنانم يا شورتي الزميلة نور ميرو سفرتم عيدلو كيف مدينة 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 بيك هيقول هيقولهم كم شورتي تولي.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نحن أبناء ملوك الزمان، هكذا تغنى شاعرنا مرسي صالح سراج يوما، وهكذا تغنى بنا ولنا وردي. لا غروة فنحن أمة عظيمة، ويكفينا كنوبة فخرا أن نسبنا يعود إلى جذور نبي الله نوح. شعب بهذه العراقة حق له أن لا يحتفل بيومه مرة في العام، ولكن أن يجعل أيامه كلها احتفالات ترفع تاريخه عاليا في وجه العصر تماما كإهرامات أجداده. We are the sons of kings of time. This is how our poet Mursi Saleh Saraj portrayed us, and this is how the one and only Muhammad Wardi sang for us. No wonder, for we are a great nation as Nubians. The fact that our lineage goes back to the roots of the Prophet Noah is enough for us to take every possible pride. People with such tremendous heritage have the right not only to celebrate once a year, but also to flood their everyday life with celebrations that raise a history in the face of time as high as the pyramids of their ancestors. يحمل الاحتفال باليوم النوبي دلالات عديدة، فهو يهدف إلى تعريف العالم بحضارتنا وبتاريخنا المتدفق عبر شعاب التاريخ كما نهر النيل، كما يهدف إلى تعريف أجيالنا الشابة بعراقة ماضي أجدادنا حتى يتصلوا الحاضر بالماضي. ويهدف الاحتفال أيضاً إلى التخطيط مستقبلاً لمنطقة النوبة، تخطيطاً يرتقي بها في مضامير التعليم والصحة والسياحة والطرق والزراعة، مما ينعكس إيجاباً على رقي إنسان النوبة وسعادته ورفاهيته. Celebrating the Nubian Day denotes lots of things. It aims to familiarize the modern world with our deep-rooted civilization and our history that flows through the reefs of times like the River Nile. It also aims to introduce the legacy of our ancestors past to our young generations so as to connect our past with our present. The celebrations also aims to plan for the future of the Nuba region in the domains of education, health, tourism, roads, and agriculture, which will ultimately positively reflect on the development, happiness, and welfare of the Nuba people. لا يمكن لأحد أن يعيش منعزلاً في عالم اليوم، تلك حقيقة جوهرية، ولذا نستضيف في يومنا النوبي عادة من السادة الدبلوماسيين والأكاديميين والسياسيين الأصدقاء من عدد من الدول الصديقة بغرض فتح قوة على دنيواتهم والإطلال على معارفها وتعريفها بحضارتنا وجذورنا العريقة. No nation can lead a secluded life. This is one essential fact. Therefore, we usually host in our Nubian Day A number of diplomats, academicians, politicians, and friends from a number of friendly countries, with the purpose of opening skylights on their walls, contemplating their knowledge and introducing them to our civilization and our ancient roots. يهدف اليوم النوبي أيضاً إلى توثيق العرى بين أبناء منطقة النوبة في الدول الأوروبية. هؤلاء الأبناء الذين بعثرتهم كما الحبوب في الحقول بعد الظروف السياسية والاقتصادية وربما بعد الأحلام العلمية، نلتقيهم لنستمد الدفء من بعضنا في قارة تموت من البرد أسماكها كما قال الطيب صالح. The Nubian Day also aims to strengthen ties between the people of the Nuba region in European countries, these people who have been scattered like seeds in field by some political, economic, and scientific factors. We meet them to get some warmth in a continent whose fish dies of the cold, as Tayyip Saleh wrote. Meeting them provides our exhausted souls with peace and tranquility. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you the chairman of the Nubian Association, Mr. Idris Nouri.
مساء الخير. مسكاك جلو ويفيجلو. Welcome. I would like to welcome Mr. Bat from Chelsea and Kensington, and Mr. Sina Lari, who are here with us. I would like to also to welcome Professor Herman Bell, Dr. Christy, Ahmed Shaheen, Dr. Jack, and Dr. Ahmed Shaheen, Dr. Stephen, and also the family of Professor Herman Bell, and all our community members and all the guests. Allow me at the outset to welcome you to the start of the Nubian Cultural Day. اسمحوا لي أن أرحب بكم في اليوم الثقافي النوبي in the name of the Sudanese Nubian of the UK باسم الرابطة النوبية في المملكة المتحدة. A brief just about our organization. The association is non-political, independent, non-profit making organization. It was founded in London in 2000 and registered with Charity Commission of England and Wales. The primary objective of the association are to promote the education of the British and Sudanese public about the rich culture heritage of Nubia and its civilization, which dates back to over 7 centuries. الرابطة من أهم أهدافها هي توثيق العلاقات والأواصر الصداقة مع المجتمع البريطاني لعكس ثقافتنا اللي بتمتد إلى آلاف السنوات. Also, one of the objectives is to assist our members and their children to learn the Nubian language, history, and heritage. And it is a civilization which dates back, as I said, to over 7 centuries. Cultural events, also we organize cultural events, lectures, workshops, film shows, art, folklore, publication are the tools used in this regard, ladies and gentlemen. We use يعني لعكس ثقافتنا النوبية عندنا أفلام، عندنا معارض، عندنا ندوات، عندنا workshops وكده وسيمينارات. This year, the Nubian cultural event is taking place 5 months after the usual date of 7th of July, due to preoccupation with the events of December Revolution and some logistical reasons. احتفالنا السنوي دائما بيكون في 7/7 من كل سنة، لكن لظروف الثورة السودانية ولظروف اللوجستية يتأخر الاحتفال من يوليو إلى الوقت الحالي. This delay, however, has its positive side, as this means that our day with the celebration of the first anniversary of December Revolution 2018 and our Independent Day, which is 1st of January 1956. So we are celebrating the Nubian International Day. We are celebrating the first anniversary of our revolution. We are celebrating also with the independence of Sudan. بنحتفل بالثورة السودانية العظيمة، ثورة ديسمبر العظيمة، نحتفل بعيد الاستقلال، نحتفل باليوم الثقافي النوبي. The steps to emphasize the fact that the Sudanese Nubians are part and parcel of the Sudanese nation and are totally committed to achievement of its goals: freedom, peace and justice. حرية، سلام وعدالة، والثورة خيار الشعب. حرية، سلام وعدالة، والثورة خيار الشعب. Freedom, peace and justice for our community and for the Sudan people. The Nubian International Cultural Day consists an exhibition of the Nubian history, folklore, and talks about Sudanese Nubian civilization, presented by lectures from universities, as I said before. Also, museums. Among those are Professor Herman Bell, Dr. Christie from SOAS, School of Oriented and African Studies, الدراسات الشرقية والأفريقية, وبروفيسور هيلمان, well known among Sudanese people. Also, Dr. Jack and Dr. Stephen and Ahmed Shahi are well known among Sudanese people. A number of supporters of association and celebration who are in the success of previous occupation also will be here. We also attend and be honored the Ethiopian band and the singer Yasir Wardi will provide the musical event. I hope that you will spend an enjoyable and useful time with us. I look forward to see you in our next event. أتمنى لكم إنكم تقضوا وقت جميل وممتع، ونشوفكم إن شاء الله في مناسباتنا القادمة. شكرا للحضور، شكرا شكرا شكرا. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
سيداتي وسادتي، أقدم لكم البروفيسور هيرمان بيل، أستاذ اللغويات بجامعة أكسفورد، والذي يشارك بقوة في الحفاظ على التراث النوبي وتعزيزه. قدم محاضرة عن الثقافة والتراث النوبي في السودان، وذلك يوم السبت الماضي. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the one and only Professor Herman Bell.
I will say in Nubian, Wo Kandaka Ani, oh my Kandaka. Eshedo, you know what Eshedo means, don't you? If something goes wrong, you're in trouble. Eshedo. I think we all say that because there have been many, many people who have suffered. Eshedo. We will say that Eshedo for them. It is the way in Nubia they express their feelings of understanding for the suffering going on. Notice how I've spelt Kandaka. I have not written Kandaka, I've written Kandake. This is your lesson in Nubian and in Arabic. In Arabic, there are three special vowels. What are they? Dhamma, Kasra, and Fatha. 3. In Nubian, how many? There are 5. In Nubian, we also have the A and the E. The ancient word kandaka from Meroitic times, and also we have it written in Greek. It had on the end of it an E, which could and should be produced when you speak Nubian. Can you hear me okay? Good. In other words, in Nubian, in Arabic you will say kandaka. In Nubian, you should say kandake. Just like there's a place called Serra, but you don't say Serra Matto, you say Seren Matto, Serre. You don't say Dibera, you say Dibere, if you're speaking Nubian. So be careful. It is possible in Nubian to pronounce, and even perhaps I would say you should pronounce kandaka as kandake. But it's okay if you use the Arabic. Next one. Next one. Next slide. Here are 2 of the women pulling the boat. Women, next one. Next slide. This has been written by our friend, Dr. Abd Halim Sabbar, al-Marhum, who died several years ago. He talks about the importance of the Nile, the River Nile, but also of the women. We'll go on to the next. Here he is, over there on the far end. We have lost 2 very important people. We have lost Dr. Abd Halim Sabbar, our friend. We have lost Bill Adams, Phil Wust, who died recently, but not yet his wife is still alive. And so, but I think is also, next one. Next slide. There we are. I'll take you to the grave. This is the graveyard, the Farouk Cemetery in Khartoum. And here you see the gravestone of Dr. Abd Halim, our friend. We have lost a great deal, more than we can imagine, when we lost him. In many ways, and I dare to make the comparison between Bill Adams and Abd Halim Sabbar. I dare to make that comparison. If we had supported him the way he should have been supported when he first came to SOAS, and we first started working things in this country, he could have produced something enormous. It was in his head, it's in his notes, it's still available, it still needs to be, we can write books and books already just from his notes. And it would have been a magnificent thing. Instead, we're in danger of losing most of it. We have produced 1 book, and I think you brought some, haven't you? Downstairs we produced some. Yes, good. Notice also in the background, there is a gravestone of a different color, a sort of brown color. That is the Kandaka. I'll tell you who it is. It is the mother of Abd Halim Sabbar. So, next one, please. There she is. There they are, mother and son. She was a real Kandaka. She was descended from the kings from down there in the Mahas, Kukke. And there we find she was magnificent in her speech, the way she spoke Nubian, and there was great love between Dr. Abdul Halim and his mother. Next one. He told me once, in Nubian, I say I visited my mother. Never I visited my mother's grave. It is possible if you go to the Farouk Cemetery for you to visit Halim and to visit his mother. You can visit them there. Very moving experience. You are not visiting their grave. It's not the way you say it in Nubian, is it? Next one. Oh, Kandaka, Ani. I'm saying this for the mother. Eshedo, Eshedo. We have lost mother, we have lost son. Next. This was written by a friend of theirs, Dr. Samir Atiyah. He said, Halim and Haboba, he called her Haboba, lie very close together now. Is this a coincidence? Whatever it is, their souls are in the hands of their Creator. This is it. Next slide, please. Wo Uru Ani. Now, I am using not Kandaka here, but Uru, which is the king. This is Abd Halim. He is my king. And I used to say, Wo Uru Ani, Eshedo. And he would say, next one. I said, Wo Uru Ani, he said, to me, he would say, Wo Jesir Ani. I was the Jesir. What is the Jesir? He was the king. I was the Murasla. You know what a Murasla is? Bil Inglesi düşünün. Huh? I'm basically the little messenger boy who runs with a message. It's okay. I will still work for my king, Uru Ani. Next one. Now this is a song, Irkuni. I'm just giving you an example of his work very quickly. A poem by Dr. Mustafa Abdul Qadir. Next one. One night, Abdul Halim went home and wrote the whole thing in beautiful Nubian and beautifully translated into English with even the occasional beautiful paddle steamer. There, you can see. And so this particular poem, which is called Our Country, Irkuini, this is our country. This is an example of his work. I visited this man also in Cairo. He's originally from Andan, and lived very close to where Halim lived originally, when they could walk from one place to the other. Unfortunately, I'm not going to read it, but I'll just give you an example of the way we could have this poem. Guris ay fajuno nisani. I rejoiced when they told me that I would go back to the country. And it's a song that is written by that Egyptian, or the poet from Adindan, and also translated. In one night, very quickly, by Halim Sabar. Next one. Finally, just one or two of the photographs of this beautiful land, which is the land of Nubia. Next one. Here is a woman who is saying, "Send a boat across the river." She shouts across the river. She is, in a way, a Kandaka herself. And she lives at a place called Kidin Konya, the face of the rock, at the southern end of Kidintu, of the Ard al-Hajar, of the belly of stones. Next one. Now let me tell you finally one thing. The Nubian Kandakas, the Nubian women, and I give them not all of the credit, but most of the credit. This is in Saras. When I was there in 1964, I came down with a bad case of dysentery. Dysenteria. People came, and let me show you the last picture. Next one more. Next. People put me in this istraha, a rest house, right by the river. The whole village, hundreds of people, men, women, and children, came to shake my hand in the istraha. It was much better than any kind of haboob or anything like this. I got well. I got well from the happiness of the support of the whole loving community of Nubian people in old Nubia, the creation of the women who are these wonderful reigning queens of Nubia. Also with some help from the men and also some help from the children. But there we are. And thank you so much. I want to leave you with the idea of the most wonderful thing that they have created. They have created is Nubia itself. The culture and the civilization of Nubia, especially in the old days, was something which was remarkable, and that's it. Shukran.
Mr. Herman, hello. Hi. This is a certificate of appreciation and gratitude on behalf of the Sudanese Nubian Association. Thank you for your marvelous contribution to the enrichment and preservation of our Nubian language and culture. I present you this. Thank you.
I must go home and give this to my wife. To my Kandaka.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Professor Stephen Quirk, Languages and Script in Ancient Nubia from the School of African and Oriental Studies. UCL, I beg your pardon. UCL.
So as you can see from the program, we're keeping on the theme of language, but there's going to be one look at the languages of Nubia, and remembering that we're coming from London to talk about this, so obviously there are people in the room who are much more better placed to talk about languages in the Nile Valley, because you are in the Nile Valley, grew up in the Nile Valley, know the Nile Valley, and are the people of the Nile Valley. So someone coming from the north of Europe, like myself, is always an excitement and an experience. And you'll find we're always extraordinarily grateful for the opportunity and the invitation to be able to join you in the Nile Valley, and particularly with language. So one of the talks that's coming is on the present and the extreme importance, the urgency of keeping languages that maybe not many people speak anymore in the present for the future, so that the children of the future, they have the option, it's not taken away from them, to talk the languages of their grandfathers and grandmothers of previous times. And then the other talk you'll be hearing is more on what you find in the archaeology. Someone like myself will go into pyramids of Begroea and see writing and script, and you don't hear it, but you read it. So there's something different with reading. It's a bit like coming from the outside twice. It's not coming from inside you when you're speaking and giving to people your own expression. It's something that you dig at, you excavate, you read out, you draw out in a different way. Depending which picture comes up first on the screen, we'll do the present and then the past. And perhaps if you excuse me just for 30 seconds, I will run up the side and make sure one of the pictures appears. So meditate for 30 seconds on the importance of language and how you're going to convey that to the future while I disappear. So we're going to start with the past, and just quickly I'd like to take you through 4 moments of the past, looking at language and script in Nubia. But what you see today, calling it ancient, is a bit of a mistake. It's in Nubia now, today, and from Nubia in museums around the world, but it's a part of present Nubia. So if we could look at the map first, to think that where the land is within the Nile River, but as it's coming down from a tropical environment, so from the green to the desert, cutting through there. I think it's really important with language to remember what you have just heard about the people and the landscape they live in and that community of people who are talking. It's the words that they speak between one another. This is what is exciting, dynamic, and essential, which is why it has to be preserved. Every language, every dialect has something to offer. And even if you're not recording it in a kind of academic way, but it's something that you're communicating, this is essential for me. Always start from physical Africa. So the 2 areas of language, the way that they've been described and catalogued by people inside and outside Africa, are the Nilo-Saharan group, to which Nubian itself belongs, and maybe Meroitic, the ancient language, which is an open question that other people here are better to pronounce on than me. And then the other language family that you find in the area is, if we could have the next slide, the African-Asian language family. African-Asian means it's spilled into Africa. Obviously, it's into Asia. Obviously, it's an African language family. So this is around other parts of Sudan, where you have in the Cushitic branch Bidoea, language of the Bidja in the east, and then further down the river, the far right in its own group, the ancient language of Egypt, which is still spoken in the Christian church and the Coptic church now, language of Kemet. So taking those two sets of languages, what I like to think always is how it works on the ground, the physical Africa, the physical Sudan, the physical Nubia, how it is living in the river. So if you go up to the Nuba Mountains, this is a map of the Nuba Mountains, language doesn't quite look like that set of graphs and lines and that kind of sterilization. No, language is something that lots of people speak, and they speak lots of them. So it's not just one language. It's something multilingual in your daily life. So the people like myself who come from outside the country and try to classify things, maybe it's necessary to think in a different way. And that's why we depend very much on the work of people in the country to express how languages relate to one another. Language is not necessarily the way it works in each part of the world, in Europe, as it does in places where people are living very close to one another. So these are the quick snapshots, photoshops I want to go through from the languages of ancient Sudan. I'm just going to focus on Old Nubian from the 1,000 years ago to Meroitic 2,000 years ago to the time when the rulers of Napata of Kush chose to use ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs and Egyptian language, and then one final choice, which for me is the most interesting of all and the most essential. So, if we start with the Old Nubian, just remember how much of the material from Nubia is here. The big institutions which have barriers of being institutions, like the museum and the university, ignore the barriers because they claim to be democratic. March to the door, grab what they have, the resources they have, use the museums. You can see Greek stele from Kalabsha, and you can see Old Nubian parchments. They're there. British Museum has a wonderful collection of Old Nubian material from Kasra Bream, from the border, just past Wadi Halfa. So you can go and see it. And if you find it on the database of the museum, it's your right, you live in London, to go and have a look at it, right to the museum. Remember, this is part of your creation, your works in the world. So these are the manuscripts on the right. They're using Greek alphabet, but adapted to writing a form of Old Nubian, meant to be an older form of that dialect in the area of Ibrahim Wadi Halfa, which might be different further south. If we look 1,000 years earlier, you see a different script, a different decision. The rulers of Napata, Beroea, they have the power to impose their own alphabet in their own way, in both a cursive line, so the lines at the top and in the middle, you can see their little figures, like hieroglyphs, and then there are cursive versions for writing manuscripts. And again, if we have a look at the next slide, I think I have a couple of examples where in the British Museum, in the Petrie Museum, and the university where I work, you can see the examples for yourself. The material is there, but you have to do this excavation. You have to draw the words out. You have to find the people. They're there. They left something. They're speaking to you. You're not visiting their graves either. They're speaking to you. They're present. You have to learn how to speak to them. So if we jump back a few hundred years further to the next slide, you find when King Pia from central Sudan moved downstream to restore order in Kemet, ancient Egypt, he chose to express that conquest in the great stele that he created in Egyptian hieroglyphs. And right down to later Meroitic rulers like Nastasen, a great stele that was found in Dongola, which is now in Berlin, you have this use of the hieroglyphs. They made a choice. They weren't speaking Egyptian or writing Egyptian in daily life, but there was something to communicate this event of joining the two lands of the river, Sudan and Egypt, at that moment to use hieroglyphs. So he's using the same script that was used 1,000, 2,000 years earlier still, also in Wadi Halfa, the stele. You can see the falcon on the bottom. I don't know if you can make out. It's a sealing from a king's seal. on a mud ceiling to seal a papyrus document, and Horus is the first title of the king in Kemet, in ancient Egypt. The Horus, he's the falcon in the sky. So that's an Egyptian king present through trade in the area of Second Cataract, and 1,500 years, 2,000 years later, that script is still being used. It's a very interesting choice. It's a choice by a collective. Language is collectives. People together, they choose, we will try to speak through this foreign language. So there are two things happening in ancient Nubia: to use what other people are bringing and to develop their own. And then if we look at the next slide, you can see a bit more closely. So this is this last Meroitic king, point where they move from Napata to Meroe to Begroea, with the king's wife on the right, so his Kandake. There you have the king and the Kandake together, joining together, and they're identified in this script they've taken from the outside. It does something for them. They use that ancient Egyptian script. So if we go to the next slide, this is Pierre's own monumental stele, one of those imposing monumental statements where he describes the conquest of Egypt to restore order from Sudan. Pierre, or Pianchi, is ruling at Napata in the area of Dongo. So if we move further, the area had already seen its strong kings, and the simpler stele on the right, with the image of a man with weapons and a crown, that's from an Egyptian fortress. But when the stele was made, it was no longer a fortress for Egyptians in Nubia, it was a fortress of the kings of Nubia. They used for themselves. And if we see one other item in the National Museum in Khartoum on the next slide, you see an Egyptian man called Ka saying, "I'm a valiant servant. I am the messenger boy for the ruler of Kush, the king of Kush, the kingdom in Sudan." So there are these kind of conflicts and moments of peace and trade and decisions, what language you're going to speak in. He's writing in Egyptian. He's speaking Egyptian. It's Egyptian language, but he's washing his feet in the water of Kush. It's this connection through the river. So these are the kind of histories that you meet, different histories in each period. And if we go to the next slide, you find that sometimes people are writing in their own language. This is a stele in Luxor in Egypt, where there's a king in the north, near Tanis in the North Delta, writing to the king of Kalmar, and his message is intercepted on the way, and they want to make a treaty against the king in Luxor in the middle. So what language was that written in? Because if you go to the next slide, this is the period of Kerma, the great city in Upper Nubia, where at the Third Cataract, where this is an artist's reconstruction of what it must have looked like. At the time, it was the most powerful kingdom in the Nile. This is 3,500 years ago, when the kingdom of Kerma dominated the south of Egypt, dominated all of central northern Sudan. It was the great power. But they chose not to write. And this is the most interesting point for me, and it happens still maybe in Africa today. Some people choose not to write, and then you have to go to them directly and listen. There's something about writing down. Sometimes they don't want to talk to us. They talk to their architecture, the great Defufa at Kerma. They talk to their extraordinary pottery, the most sophisticated pottery that was ever made in Africa, the white line burnished, black-topped ware, this beautiful strain, which has so many connections to the customs and rituals of the modern country, but they chose not to write. Which leaves us with the question, when we go into the past, who chooses? We want to talk to them, but how are they going to talk to us? And that's something I think we should think about also for the future. How are you going to talk to the future? Which languages are you really not just saying you want to preserve? What are you actually doing about it? How do you communicate in your daily life? How do you create that future? out of these words and these non-words? So those are the kind of questions that someone like me looking into the past comes to. Again, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak today, because moving from the Thames into the Nile Valley is always an extraordinary experience, and it's so wonderful to feel today that I'm in Nubia through you. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Dr. Christy Rowan. She is specialized in Nubian endangered languages and living heritage. Please come to the stage. From University Schools of Oriental and African Studies, SOAS.
Hello everyone. I'd like to start by actually saying thank you to Idris and the Sudanese Nubian Association in the UK for giving me the honour to talk today. That's very nice. I'll be quick because I know you want to get on with the dancing in true Nubian fashion. I wanted to talk to you today on the theme of the Kendake because I think it's very important, and I think that it's very impressive the way that it's being picked up as a symbol for the peace and freedom and justice, which is what part of the revolution is hoping for, change in the Sudan to happen. So you can see here, this is the Kendake script. So I'm just going to give you a basic overview of your own, the status of your own language. So we know that Nubian is actually an endangered language, and we should be very, very concerned about this, because language is the carrier of your culture. So this slide gives you an outline of that. And you can see I've broken it down into the distinct different Nubian languages, because we know that Nubian is an umbrella term or a collective term for a group of people who have different languages. So you can see that we have the Nobi Nubians, the Andandi, the Kanuz, the Midob, and also the Hill Nubian languages as well. And we also know that there are many Nubian languages that have already died out. Herman himself was one of the last people to look at the Haraza language before the last speaker died in the 1960s, 70s. So we know that languages in this area are on their way to dying out. And we already witnessed within the Nile Valley the death of one language, Meroitic. And we hope that this doesn't happen to the Nubian languages either. So it's very heartening that the Nubian diaspora, i.e. yourselves, commit to promoting Nubian languages and culture through the association. And this is very, very important, this work. Can I get the next slide, please? Okay, so what are the reasons why languages die out? Well, it's not just because of things such as war, genocide, deracination, where people are having to leave their homes. And as we know, this has happened to the Nubians for over 100 years, where you've had forced migration because of the continuous dam building in the Nile Valley. But one of the most dominant factors to do with language endangerment is things such as dominance. And dominance can be whether it's historical, such as colonization. And we know that Sudan has had previous or many colonizations throughout history. It's political as well. We know when languages are prohibited from being spoken. So if you have something like an Arabization policy, where it's not okay to write down your languages or to use your languages or to have your languages spoken in education or within a political sphere, we know that that also leads to endangerment. Another one is cultural, and this would be the literary or educational as well. Thank you. So we know that what you have here, Nubians have one of the greatest literary societies, and yet there is nothing being written in Nubian, and this has to change. There is no current, we need to make sure that we agree that there has to be an agreement on some kind of literary practice, and that's the adoption of a script, whether that's the Arabic script or the old Nubian script and this. It has to start being written down, because through this we can transmit this not just through intergenerational transmission, i.e. from the parents or the grandparents to the children. Also, we know that what leads to the endangerment of languages can be economic, poverty, and again, migration. We know Nubians have been through many forced migration. And the one that I want to talk to you very quickly about today is I have a proposal for you. And this is to do with attitudinal, it's valorization. So this is the idea that we should value our languages. And when we speak minority languages, which is what Nubian is in situ, in Sudan and Egypt, it's a minority language. And we have to start changing our attitudes towards those minority languages, not just from people who are outsiders to that language, but also ourselves as well. We have to change this. Can I have the next slide, please? So what I wanted to do today was to put forward a brief proposal to you. Now, I think that the attitudinal change completely can be looked at from looking at the community in a different way. And I think it's wonderful that we have so many members of the Nubian community here, but I wonder sometimes whether the community masks something else, which is the really important aspects of a community. And that could be the Nubian youth, but it could also be the Nubian women. And I want to talk about how the Nubian women, or the Kandakis, are exceedingly important in making sure that the language and the culture doesn't die out. So when we talk about community, we talk about it as a single entity, and it's not. A community is very dynamic and it's very fluid. So, and in any community, and I've been very grateful to be taken into the Nubian community through the Sudanese Nubian Association and through my work with Herman and also Dr. Sabah, but it means that we know that there's lots of disagreements. Now, this is natural because we're all human, but these disagreements are who has the authority or the legitimacy to actually say Nubian should be written in the Arabic script, the Roman script, or the Greek-derived script. I would say the community as a whole has legitimacy, and every part of the community has legitimacy in that discussion. So what I would ask you is that we shouldn't obscure the role of women and the importance of the Kandake in these discussions as well, because the women are actually the keepers of the culture. It's not for nothing that we have the term mother tongue. So we have to honor the women, the Nubian women. We have to make sure that the Nubian women transmit the language and the culture to the younger generation. So we need to valorize and promote the role of the women. Can I have the next slide, please? So I'd just like to give you a quote. Now, I've given the title of this slide as the Kandake as a co-regent. So we know that in Meroitic culture, we know that there was very strong queen rulers, and these were also co-regents. They ruled equally sometimes with the king. And now this is a quote that was given by the Special Reporter for Cultural Rights, and she said that women must become equal participants and decision makers in all the cultural affairs of their own specific communities and in the wider general society. In this sense, cultural rights are empowering, for they provide individuals with control over the course of their lives, facilitating the enjoyment of other rights, and a large part of the transformative aspect of cultural rights is being able to overturn presumed female and male characteristics and capabilities. So it's a call for equality, and we know that that equality can exist. Can I have the next slide, please? So these are just the images, which I thought the one from the revolution was actually quite striking, because the pose was quite similar to the Meroitic. I think this is Amintori. They're one of the Kandakis from the Meroitic kingdom. And I think we have to valorize the role of women as part of the community in promoting the cultural and language or linguistic rights of Nubia. Can I have the last slide, please? So really it's a call to arms, well, it's a request, politely. And I'm asking that all the women have true participation to participate in or even reject any of the cultural practices or beliefs of their choosing. But it's not just saying, well, we do this because it's tradition. We can leave some traditions behind. It's also about having access, so the right of women to know, understand, and benefit from their cultural traditions, as well as those of other communities to engage with ideas and notions, both from within their societies and without. And also a right to the contribution, to contribute to the cultural life, including using one's imagination and intellect to engage with and create artistic expression. So we know that women have a very strong place in Nubian culture. Can I get the last slide, please? Wakey, wakey. Can I have the last slide, please? Smoking, not really. So really, I just want to say the proposal is that we need to really valorize the role of the Kandaki in every aspect of preserving the Nubian intangible heritage. But not only that, if the revolution actually succeeds and there is a promotion, to make sure that the Kandakis are at the heart of any new Sudanese government. So I just wanted to give you this picture. Where is Ondi here? Ondi, okay. So this is Fatia, yeah? So this, I wanted to show this because I thought it was absolutely wonderful. When I did some documentation out in Khartoum with Herman a couple of years ago, we had the great honor of meeting this lady. Does anybody else know who this lady is? So she is Mohammed Wardi's sister, and she is a wonderful musician. Yeah, absolutely wonderful musician. Thank you. And I wanted to exalt the fact that you have amongst you, you Nubians, you are so lucky you have the best singers, the best dancers, the best musicians, but these are also the women as well. And I just wanted to pay respect to Mohammed Wardi's sister because she is also a wonderful Kandaki. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Dr. Jack Wheeler.
Muscat Gilo. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Jack Bueller, and I'm going to do a brief presentation to you on the importance of the word Nubian in identifying a common cultural heritage for African diasporans. As many of you may know, the word Nubian is euphemistically used in the West to describe black or someone of African heritage. About 3 months ago, I was contacted by Mr. Al-Ansari, who basically wanted to know what I did. Well, I understand he Googled me and saw some of the work that I do. And what it is I've got a company called Nubian Jack, which I've been running now for about 25 years. I know I don't really look that old, but I have used that brand to identify certain spaces in the United Kingdom, and I'm going to show you a little bit about that. Unfortunately, we do not have control of our slides, slap in the wrist and Chelsea, but we will, I've got quite a few slides to get through. So, my first slide is, I think the term Nubian is perhaps slightly misunderstood. There was a writer called George G.M. James who wrote about the stolen legacy, i.e. people who have claimed certain identities which belong to other cultures, like, for instance, in Egypt. We obviously all know that the inhabitants of Egypt currently today are not like the ones that were there in antiquity. And it's my contention that ancient Nubia looks slightly different to how it does today. This is the map of ancient Nubia. And if I can go to the next slide, this is the first pharaoh that founded or helped to unify Upper and Lower Egypt. He was from a place called Lower Nubia. And let's take a look at his features, shall we? You'll notice the one on the right is how he's described today. But the other ones, are contemporary artifacts of his description. Next slide, please. This is a classic slide. If you can get this on the internet, this is a classic slide, because this is the pharaohs of antiquity before their noses were blown off. This is how those statues looked. The original Nubian people. Next slide, please. And as our previous speaker spoke about the Kandaki, or the Candaces, it's been anglicized to the Candaces, there was, of course, 5 Kandakis who ruled over Egypt, 5 African queens who ruled over Egypt. And these are some of the depictions of the Nubian people. As you can see, there are full lips, full noses, and they're very beautiful people. Next slide, please. And this is what the Europeans saw when they came to Egypt. These magnificent Nubian statues, like gods and goddesses, appearing over the precipice. It was a man called Jean Champollion who reconnected the Asian Africans with Egypt, because due to the Holocaust that African people encountered, they were disassociated, disconnected with their high cultural contributions and achievements. And it was a man called Jean Champollion who deciphered the Rosetta Stone, ladies and gentlemen. And once you did that, we were able to dissect and read inscriptions on the pyramids. Man, know thyself, often attributed wrongly to Aristotle. Man, know thyself is written on every pyramid. And as we know, all the pyramids started in Nubia. The further north we went, they got bigger. They started in Nubia. So who were the people that founded the Egyptian civilization? Next slide, please. This man, so-called Sphinx, has been carbon dated to be 10,000 years old. Look at his features. Your eyes cannot lie. Look what Napoleon did to his nose. Napoleon got his cannons out and said, you must destroy that image of the Nubians, the original Nubians. Look at that. Tell me, look at that. It's amazing, isn't it? Next slide, please. And there you have the Nubian people today, the most ancient people in Nubia. I put it to you. We are all one people. Nubia, like Britain, is a melting pot of lots of wonderful groups of people. But these are the original people. And that's why I call myself Nubian Jack, because they look just like me. Next slide. And that's me with my dreadlocks, impersonating the pharaohs. I used to sing, still do. Do you want to hear a number? Better not. Next slide. And this is how the Nubian Jack brand started, ladies and gentlemen. We turned a board game. We flipped the Union Jack and called it Nubian Jack. Nubian flag. Next slide. And we produced 6 versions of a board game to highlight black achievement in sport, politics, history, science and engineering. And then we moved into, next slide please, plaques. And we decided that we would memorialize ancient Nubians with discs. Next slide please. And our very first, there's quite a few slides, so I'm not going to go into too much of these. Our very first slide was to Bob Marley, and it's now the 4th visited plaque in this country. And it's important that you realize every single slide has the name Nubian Jack on it. Next slide after this, please. Next slide, please. This slide, ladies and gentlemen, is the Foreign Office. We put a plaque on the Foreign Office. And we put, can you see Nubian Jack? Can you see it? We claimed Nubian Jack on the Foreign Office because a Nubian once lived there by the name of Ignatius Sancho, a remarkable man. Next slide, please. In fact, I'm going to let you go through, keep going through because there's so many slides. Ladies and gentlemen, we've produced 50 slides with the name Nubian on it. Keep going, please. And again. Nelson Mandela, keep going. And again. We'll stop it here, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we did a plaque to the very first black mayor in this country, a man by the name of John Archer. We produced a book, Nubian Jack book, and we got contacted by the Royal Mint, who used our cover of their book, of our book, for a stamp. There's the Nubian Jack connection. Keep going, please. I'm going to go through this until, keep going. All of these, ladies and gentlemen, Nubian Jack, Nubian Jack, Nubian Jack, Nubian, 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 controlling the spaces, Nubian, Nubian Jack, keep going, stop. That is an obelix. That obelix, ladies and gentlemen, is the very first memorial. In fact, next slide, please. Very first memorial to African and Caribbean soldiers in this country that fought for Britain in World War I and World War II. It is the only monument in the UK that commemorates 2 million Africans. And I designed it, which is a disgrace. Because, next slide, please. Keep going, please. Keep going. In fact, keep going. And we released it. Next slide, please. One more. One more. That's how it looks. And if you notice, the symbol, again, are Kemetic, are Nubian. We have the obelix, and we have the pyramid, the prayer house. The obelix, can you go back, please? The obelix is a symbol, or a so-called phallic symbol, if you know the story of Heru and Isis and Osiris, etc. And of course, the pyramid is a symbol of a female genitalia. What we have here is compatibility, organized chaos, harmony, memorialized for 2 million servicemen. Okay, we're going to speed up and stop. We're going to go back. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the largest plaque in the world. It's in this borough, Kensington and Chelsea. Pat Mason knows about this. Do you know Pat? Largest plaque in the world. And inscribed on it is Nubian Jack. Next one. And again, nearly coming to the end. These are plaques, all these you see, these are plaques that we did this year. And just we did that last week. Stop. Come back. This is a man I admire greatly, deeply. I think he's a man that's misunderstood. The last emperor of Ethiopia, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to be putting a plaque to him on the Ethiopian embassy in January. The remarkable His Majesty, Haile Selassie. You need to read upon this man. Although you know him, do we really know him? An amazing man. And my final slide, ladies and gentlemen, is a slide to the women, to the nurses. Because it's also a disgrace that there are no statues to African and Caribbean and Commonwealth Windrush nurses that help to keep this NHS alive. And if you notice, the symbols are Nubian. We have the Ankh. The Ankh, can you see the Ankh, ladies and gentlemen? It's all very silent in here. You've never heard this before, have you? The Ankh is a symbol of life. But we used it in a creative way because you couldn't see their faces. When these nurses came to work here, they were invisible. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to stop there. My name is Dr. Jack Bueller, and I'm the CEO of Nubian Jack. Thank you.